Good morning, everyone. Welcome to Family Focus. I am one of your hosts, Faith Suggs, former Duke Women's basketball graduate, currently working in New York as Director of Basketball Operations and Social Media Manager with Long Island University. And this wonderful man to the left of me is Shafer Suggs, my father, former NFL player with the New York Jets and Cincinnati Bengals, as you can hear from his ringtone, and also serves on the executive board and vice president with the NFL Former Players of Chicago. Good morning, Dad. How are you?
I'm good. We had a delay on our kickoff. We did, right? I love it. So, beautiful day here. I just found out that we lost a icon, Gail Sayers, though, and I just found out just minutes ago. So I'm so sad about that. But um, let's get on with our show. What is it? Wednesday, episode 54, and we have a great, wonderful guest. One of my most special friends that I've met at Starbucks, Mark Alstrand, and he'll be here. But Faith, you want to talk a little bit about some introduction here?
Yep. And I will play this video I have just to get our guests ready.
Well, we are privileged to have you here with us tonight. Thank you for making the effort to join us on this Christmas Eve. And how about this? 50-some degrees today. How about that, huh? It's pretty good. Well, maybe you, like me, recall seeing a bumper sticker years ago that came out that had this rather clever message on it: no God, no peace. But then right underneath it, it said, no God, no peace. You know, peace is a highly valued term in our world. We hear about people in the Middle East working on the problem of peace. We hear about peaceful demonstrations of all kinds of causes. We hear about politicians who like to claim that the solutions that they're thinking about in this world will bring us peace. We hear mothers with small children who are praying for peace around the house. And of course, many people are on a search for personal peace. One of the most popular themes on Christmas cards and, of course, Christmas hymns as well is centered around the word peace. And it's often phrased, peace on earth, goodwill to men. Well, what does peace have to do with Christmas? Everything. But the peace that Christmas brings is not for everyone. And that is startling news for many. I hope it's not for you. Stay tuned for details. Many in this world have offered us different perspectives on the subject of peace. John F. Kennedy, our former president, said peace is a daily, a weekly, a monthly process, gradually changing opinions, slowly eroding old barriers, quietly building new structures. Ralph Waldo Emerson said, nobody can bring you peace but yourself. The late singer Marvin Gaye said, if you cannot find peace within yourself, you will never find it anywhere else. Another late singer, the famed Jimi Hendrix, said, when the power of love overcomes the love of power, then the world will know peace. A third late singer, John Lennon, said this, if everyone demanded peace instead of another television set, then there'd be peace. And of course, later on, he said, well, actually, all we are saying is give peace a chance. Patrick Henry said, gentlemen may cry, peace, peace, but there is no peace. Of course, Henry was not the first person to say this. The prophet Jeremiah put it this way, they have healed the wound of my people, saying, peace, peace, when there is no peace. You know, peace is so highly valued that we even have a number of awards handed out annually. And I think you know what they are. It's the Nobel Peace Prize. Martin Luther King Jr. once said, I have been a drum major for the subject of peace, and he won the Nobel Peace Prize in 1964. But get this, remarkably, the man responsible for those awards had a rather unusual history. The Nobel Prize is, of course, named after Alfred Nobel. He is known as the inventor of dynamite, and at one point was given the nickname the Merchant of Death. In 1888, his brother Ludwig died, and a French newspaper erroneously published an obituary for the inventor, not for Ludwig. That obituary condemned him for his invention of dynamite. It stated, "The merchant of death is dead." You know, Alfred Nobel really was a remarkable human being. He came from a family of engineers. He was a brilliant man, fluent in many languages. He held patents for over 355 inventions. He loved literature, wrote a great deal of poetry and drama. Nobel also created multiple corporations that amassed a rather sizable fortune for the Nobel name. And yet it was his skill as a chemist that actually marked him permanently in history. But in inventing dynamite, Nobel single-handedly changed the nature of war. Countries around the world sought his products of death. He willfully sold it to them. Did Alfred Nobel turn to Christ later on in his life? Well, there's no evidence of this. Did he give his fortune to advance the gospel and further the cause of global missions on the earth? No. No, he gave his fortune to the Nobel Peace Prize. Yes, Nobel brought the world the Peace Prize. But did he bring the world peace? He did not. He hoped the prize would rewrite his legacy. Contrast that with another single life, that of Jesus of Nazareth. The biblical prophet Micah
Wonderful introduction to our show, No God, No Peace. This is that was a very special in today's culture and climate. But this is a wonderful family. Mark right now is the director of ministry, leader at Christ Community House Church in Plainfield, Illinois. Previously, because probably the most special people I've met in my life is at Starbucks. And we and his lovely wife Rhonda formed this really neat relationship. And at that time, Mark was the host of the Moody AM Moody radio station, WLLL, and currently they're doing a communication and mentoring program, moving people forward. Started the All-Star group, and just so many accomplishments and so many things that he's done. 2 books. He's the author of 2 books. The Recline Reflection, and one of my favorite, 10 Passions of a Man's Soul. And we're going to talk a little bit about that piece. But without further ado, I'd like to bring in our very, very special guest, Mark Oster.
And good morning to both of you.
Good morning.
Good morning. Good morning. That was a really, I don't know if you knew we were going to play that. But,
no, I didn't know which one. I just knew you said that you were going to have some video clip, and I thought, well, we'll roll with the flow, so to speak. So
Right. How's it going?
Actually, life is pretty good. Next month, Lord willing, I'll have a 69th birthday. I can almost catch up with you.
Yeah, I'm sure we're not very far apart.
But nice to be able not only to hang with you, but your beautiful daughter, who I kind of followed vicariously through your stories about her, as you had a lot of great pride in her athletic skills as she was going through school and then on to Duke. And now look at her, and she's actually employed. Wow, you got a job after going to Duke. I would hope so, Faith.
Yeah, well, that's what we picked Duke for. So I would hope I had a job, or else we got to talk to Duke a little bit about that. But yes, I am very blessed, especially in these times right now. I'm so thankful for this job.
Could you help me out? Just tell me about Long Island University. I'm not familiar with the school.
Long Island University has 2 campuses. It has one on, Dad, where exactly is Post Campus?
Long Island.
In Long Island, and then we have a campus in Brooklyn, New York, right down the street from the Barclays Center, right in the middle. Right off the bridge, Brooklyn Bridge, 20 minutes from the Brooklyn Bridge. It is a commuter campus, so kids can drive in and do the classes and leave, but we also have athletes and students who live on campus. It's a smaller campus. And what we have here at Brooklyn campus is basketball, softball, track and field, volleyball. So limited sports in this campus, and the other sports are on Post Campus out in Long Island. So It is a newer university to its new brand, which is the Sharks family. Originally were the Blackbirds because it was two universities that merged. So a lot of new stuff. We're in our second year under the head coach I'm under, who was my assistant coach at Duke University, Remy Haynes. So we're excited. Hopefully we get a season this year. We are, God willing, hopefully they figure it out and we can test our kids and play a little games because the kids really want to, especially after all the hard work they've been doing the last couple weeks.
Do you have some talent on your team?
We have talent, is what you'll call it. When we first got the team, they weren't the kids that we brought in, so we kind of made do with what we had and figured out. But then this year we were able to bring in 5 kids under our coaching staff, so they are pretty good. It's exciting. We should be good this year. We should win the conference is what I think. We're coming second, so I'm excited, and that's why I really hope they play some games because the kids have been working really hard.
Yeah, just another quick item. I think you're, about an hour and a half away from where your brother is going to school, right?
We're in 36 minutes. Not far at all.
So you got it right down to the minute, huh? Okay.
It's perfect.
Yeah.
It's right there. I can go see him soon. I'm going to try to see him soon, actually. In October, bother him a little bit because he's bored. But, yeah, he's right down the street. I'm thankful. Right down the street.
We're going to be cheering for his success as he migrates through the academic program at Yale. It's kind of like a junior college, isn't it, compared to what you're doing?
I called him the other day. He cracked me up. I said, how's your school, like your classes? He goes, oh, it's easy. Yeah. And I was like, oh, Yale is easy. Only person to say that.
Yeah,
but I said, you know, they do say Duke and other schools like that are harder than Ivy League schools. So maybe you just picked the wrong place.
Yeah, it kind of sounds like a military recruiter, you know, when they tell you what it's going to be like. Oh, it's a picnic. You'll breeze through it until you get to basic and find out what reality is really like. So. Yeah. Good to see you, Faith. You're looking good.
Thank you. But Dad, why don't you break down a little bit about what you want to dive in? I know you want to dive into passion, so give us a little bit about what this topic is and why you thought about it.
Well, I wanted you to kind of segue that because you did a wonderful program, your solo program that has got a lot of reviews about purpose. And then I know that Mark and his mentoring and his consulting has really kind of touched on the passion of purpose. So I kind of wanted to get some interaction between you two, and maybe you can share with Mark a little bit about what you were talking about, and go from there.
All right. You want me to start, or are you asking?
Mark.
What's that?
I'll start.
Sure.
Just so I can give you a rundown. So I did have a solo show 2 weeks ago, an hour long, and I discussed passions. I had read it in a new book I had started. And it was talking about how to find your purpose and your passion, the thing you love to do in life. And the one thing that it kind of broke down was the definition, how to find it, and how to understand that it doesn't have to be a job. It can be anything you love and love to do and wake up to do. And that was something I really enjoyed because as a new adult, kind of, I'm trying to find the thing that I love to do and the purpose and my passion and stuff like that. And what I had to learn was that it can evolve with time and it can change. Different hats it can be. And another thing I had learned about, and this is something my dad and I have talked many times about on the show, is to have, in order for you to have a great purpose and passion, you have to have a great supporting cast, because it is so important when you have found that moment and that thing for you, that you find people around you that support it and believe in it and can encourage you on that path to strengthening it and evolving it, I should say. So yeah, that's just a couple things that I dove into. Obviously you can take your way about it, and we would love to hear what your opinion is a little bit.
Sure. Well, let me give you that what I think is one of the most important ways to start on this. It's kind of, whose purpose are we talking about? And you say, well, we're talking about my purpose. You kind of go, yeah, but is it really the purpose that you've decided on? Is it the purpose that others have in some way influenced you to think about? So, for example, somebody when you were growing up could say, I'll tell you what you ought to be, Faith. You ought to be. And you can start to hear these messages in your head, and you go, oh, is that what I'm supposed to do? And that's part of the reason why, when you said that later on in life, your purpose can change. And that's because pretty soon some realities begin to set in. And then you start thinking about, is that really me? What am I here for? Why have I been created for this? And so that takes a while sometimes to filter out. And ultimately, in my own life, where I wanted to get to was to be at his purpose. That's different from my purpose, different from others' purpose for me. My mother used to say to me quite often when I was growing up, "Oh, you'd make an excellent pastor." And for most of my life, I didn't want to be a pastor. I didn't want to be a preacher or a minister. I just didn't even like that concept. But that was her idea of what would be good for me. But when I was 40 years old, I had an experience where I was driving home from work one night, and I was listening to a song on my CD player, and the lyrics came up, so desire to tell the story of a love that loved enough to die, burns away all other passions, and fed by Calvary's love becomes a fire. And all of a sudden, in my car, I just began to weep. I had no idea why that struck me so deeply. And so I continued to drive. I was fairly close to home, but I didn't go home. I had to sort this out. And then I decided just to ask the sovereign one of the universe, if you're trying to communicate to me, I'm speaking English, because it's the only language that I really understand. And it was as if these words were spoken to me directly. If I wanted you in full-time ministry, you wouldn't go. And I realized that there was truth to that statement. And it took me a while to process that, not hours, but just a couple of minutes. And I just said, Lord, I am willing to go anywhere and do anything for the kingdom of God, but you'll have to get me there. So in other words, if you take that from whatever my purpose was up to that point in life, which was, well, I got to support my family, I've got to use my skills and my gifts to make money, whatever that criteria was out there, I was now changing the entire focus to say, well, God's going to lead me in this process. And within just a couple of weeks, I wound up with a job offer. I was working in the trade show business at the time to get back into radio, quite unexpectedly, at a Christian radio station in Pittsburgh, and which I went on to meet many Steelers, by the way, Shafer, some wonderful guys. But I noticed that my entire focus for why I was doing what I was doing had suddenly shifted. In other words, my purpose had changed. And then, just not probably too many years after that, I came across a verse that has now become my daily perception of a life verse. And it's Psalm 138, verse 8. And I would encourage anyone who isn't quite sure where they stand on this subject to consider starting with this. And it goes like this: the Lord will fulfill his purpose for me. Your love, O Lord, endures forever. Do not forsake the work of your hands. We could replace that word forsake, this is in the ESV as far as the translation, with abandon or give up on. Do not give up on the work of your hands. And of course, the person who wrote those words was seeking intimacy with God. It was King David. And so he said that the Lord would accomplish his purpose. And when we take our lives and we place them in God's hands, and we're willing to do what God wants us to do, and we ask God to show us what he wants us to do, our lives begin to take on a true sense of purpose.
Wow. I love that, actually. And I hope that, Psalms 138, verse 8.
Right. Correct. ESV. Take the ESV only because, you can Google it and it'll come up that way. And so that's the precise wording that you'll find in the ESV.
Right. Well, and you touched on a little bit of how you felt your purpose. It came to you the more you trusted in God and allowed God to let go, let God, and allowed God to kind of take the wheels, which is something we talk a lot about. Dad, what do you think about that a little bit? Because I know you and I have spoken many times through your life that has evolved and changed, and your purpose has changed throughout time, through adversity and through not adversity, right? Through great times. Talk to us a little bit about what you think about that.
Mark, that was a beautiful response, and of course our slogan is "Let go, let God, let go, let faith, let go, let God." And I tell you, when you realize, and it does evolve over years. Your purpose does change. And I remember after the loss of Sue, I had to really sit down and pray because I was just okay. I knew I had the tools, I had the spiritual tools, but I had to slow down and not allow fear and love, but let faith guide me. And just sit down and say, God, just lead me to what that purpose is. And it became very, very clear to me that my role in life had completely changed. And it's been a wonderful journey because I have allowed God to help me navigate. It was the tandem bicycle where I was driving at one point in time. I had to get in the back seat and let him drive. And as a result of that, I think both Faith and Devin have watched that. And I think, as you can see in what Faith exemplifies in her level of maturity at this time in her life, that she has also um, been able to do the same thing. So, um, what a powerful thing to talk about purpose. I guess my question too also, how do you help people that are struggling in finding their purpose in their life? Or how do you help them? How do you do that?
Yeah, I asked them to kind of consider the idea of a bullseye. And, when you take, if you're doing target practice, and I don't know, Faith, were you ever into archery when you were a Duke? Did you ever?
No, but Devin was. Devin was a big archery person.
Oh, okay. So you know the targets, and then we all know if you play darts, it's the same principle, but you have the outer circles and they move to the inner circles, and then you get to that bullseye that is right there in the center, and that's where the highest point total is. Well, most likely, virtually everybody who would watch this today has gifts that have been given to them by God for the purpose of advancing good things on this earth. We can use those gifts for good or we can use them for evil. Okay, but some people have a lot of those gifts, and some people don't have as many, but they're more focused. And which one is the better? That's really debatable, because some people who only have a few gifts are so focused that they become your top athletes in the world, for example, because they just focused on what their true centered gift were. Other people have so many that they just can do all kinds of things, but they don't, you've heard the master of none, so to speak, right? Okay, so you take those outer circles and then you try to move them to the center. And what actually constitutes that? I think that center point is the intersection between what God has most gifted you to do and what you most long to do. What gives you the most satisfaction? John Eldridge has written about this, and one of the phrases that he uses is, what makes you come alive? And I just thought that as soon as I heard that, I went, that's a great way to say that. When you're doing that, what is it that makes you come alive? So, for example, in my own life, a lot of people think I'm really so extrovert, but I don't like big gatherings and crowds. I don't like talk that is just for the sake of filling time. You go to a social gathering and people are just yapping about things, but it doesn't have any depth. But if I can get together one-to-one with Shafer Suggs, we can sit down and talk about the important things of life or where things are going and challenges we face. That's stimulating to me. And I can come out of an hour and a half of that feeling energized, whereas a group can change the whole dynamic. So you have to learn about those things about yourself. What is it that makes you come alive, and where is your gifting? And when you put those two things together, I think you can start saying, I'm finding what my purpose is in terms of what I'm supposed to do with my life.
Right. And to piggyback off that a little bit, what about the people who have found the thing that helped them come alive, and then now it's time for them to change routes and find a new thing? How would you give them advice for that transition?
Yeah, well, sometimes we can even deceive ourselves, right, Faith? We can think, and you get a lot of people who, after they come to, if you'll excuse the expression, faith, think that, maybe I'm supposed to quit this and go into ministry. And oftentimes that may not be the best decision. So I would say to explore the areas where you think that God might be leading you. And there probably is a reason that God might be leading you there. It may not be the primary thing you're supposed to be doing in life, but it may be that there is a path that's going to give you a much better sense of what really is the point of your purpose. It also could lead you on a journey that will help you clarify some other things in your life that probably may have been barriers to you really sensing your purpose. And you can kind of clear those out of the way. So I would say pursue it as far as it will take you. And if it suddenly opens up and makes you come really alive, you're probably on the right path.
That's awesome.
No.
That's awesome. Let's change gears a little bit. Let's talk a little bit about a program you and Rhonda are working with, moving people forward.
Yeah.
And a little bit of what was the inspiration on that? I see some really neat topics. Many people struggle with the why question. Why is it so hard to not find it fulfilling? So maybe you could talk a little bit about moving people forward.
Sure. So what happened was I was in radio for just a bit over 40 years of my life. I have done other things in life. I've been in business. Rhonda and I started a publishing company back in Pittsburgh several years ago. I was in the marketing field for a while. I had my own marketing business and so forth. But the center point of my life, aside from my cell phone going off and ringing, so let me just put an end to that because, again, it's probably one
Not just me.
But so what happened was, after my 41 years in radio, we began to think about, what's next for me. And Rhonda put up on our elfstrandgroup.com website that, Mark is reinventing himself. And I don't know if it was a complete reinvention. I think it was just, now I'm going to be focusing on things that I want to do. And so what we thought about was, what are the things that I tend to like doing? And I enjoy, as you know, Shafer, I've written a book, 10 Passions of a Man's Soul. I've been involved in men's ministry for a number of years. I get great satisfaction out of that. I enjoy the creative process about business. I enjoy coming alongside people who are struggling with issues in life and giving just advice and input, counsel, if you will. It's just kind of part of my nature. At my church, I get the opportunity to focus on leadership. One thing Shafer didn't mention is I have had a passion in life to get involved in starting 2 city-wide ministries. One of them is the prayer breakfast back in Pittsburgh, which still continues today, and citywide prayer breakfast, and then the Chicago Executive Forum, which we started here in the early 2000s. So those were things that I liked doing. I liked hanging out with people of influence and trying to make a difference myself. So what we decided to do was to start a YouTube program and a podcast. And the title of it would be Moving People Forward. That actually came from my former general manager of the radio station I worked for in Pittsburgh, who said, Mark, this is after some 40 years that he'd been managing radio stations, that I finally figured out what my job is. And he said, if I can just get everybody moving forward here at the station. And I thought, that really is a good line. And I thought that's a good line today for Faith Suggs. Because that really, when you're coaching basketball, right? I mean, you've got these different players, different temperaments, different personalities. There's just a lot of pieces that, you could hold back the team. But you got to move it all forward. But you got to move it forward with all these different players. So you have to be skilled in human relations almost as much as you need to be skilled with the idea of how to play basketball, what makes a good athlete. And take a look at a coach like John Wooden, for example, and how he cared about people along with his players as well. And so there's really an art to all of this that comes together. So I thought that if we could have guests on this podcast and the YouTube program, who in some way, through our interview, would help move people forward, then that would be one piece. And then the other things that we would put on our website would all flow from that kind of a concept. These are things that I would do. I could speak at leadership retreats. I could speak at men's retreats. I could do seminars and such like that, all with the same intention of moving people forward.
That's awesome.
It is. Well, let's talk a little bit about that. Dad, you have the topics here in front of us. One of the things that I read through them, and one of them was, why do I work so hard and not find it fulfilling? And I was like, especially right now, right? A lot of people are struggling with either have lost a job or now they're working from home and they're trying to balance family life and their personal. And what can you talk to us a little bit about that one? Because I think that one, especially in 2020 and in modern society where the mentality is to work so hard and chase success that people often find themselves in this predicament?
Yeah, that's a pretty wide-ranging field, but let me start here. In my final days when I was working at the Moody Bible Institute, I was developing a program that I hoped would make it into churches as a curriculum. In the financial world, you probably know that there are people like Larry Burkett, Ron Blue, and others who developed or Dave Ramsey, who developed financial curriculum that tell you how to manage your money. But actually, over 1/3 of our life is spent in the workplace. And yet I've really never seen any curriculum developed that puts in front of the church the way we ought to address the idea of work and how can we expand our thinking off of this. And so I began to work on that process. As it turns out, Moody was unconvinced that they had the time to do that. So, and then I left not too long after. But that idea has still kind of been mulling around in my soul a little bit. So let me just tell you where that wound up. I began to think about the number of people, and Faith, you will see this if you haven't already, but how many people don't like their jobs? Every year, surveys come out, and people tell you that, I can't believe, that I wish I could quit my job tomorrow. Obviously, the problem isn't the work, because the next person who gets that job might go, this is the greatest job I've ever had. So something must be wrong in the process of the thinking that is going on in this. So just like Larry Burkett and Ron Blue and Dave Ramsey can tell you that if you don't get the one financial principle right first, all the rest of it is going to still be confusing along life's journey. And what is that principle? First, God owns it all. If we don't understand that, then we keep thinking every day about the money. It's ours. It's mine. And so money becomes just our vehicle to do what we want. And we can take ideas that, this is how to manage your money better. But the problem is still, it's our money. But if we start with the premise, it's God's, and we're stewards of that changes everything about the way we should be thinking about money as we go along. Okay, now let's apply that to the workplace. Well, so first of all, is work a blessing or a curse? The answer to that is work is a blessing. We read in the book of Genesis, of course, that the ground was cursed because of sin. But it doesn't say that work was a curse. Otherwise, why in the world would God have put Adam in the Garden of Eden and had him doing work? And he didn't seem to complain at all. He seemed to enjoy what he was doing. But it got difficult because of the curse. And so we're living in a fallen world. And so, yes, work is always going to have some difficult challenges. But we must first start with an understanding that work is a blessing. We're going to have to cut you. And he can't find another team in the NFL to pick him up. His whole sense of well-being and feeling about himself and all this is going to shift downwards. And this is what's happening in the world today. Look how many people are being unemployed. And so they lose their sense of purpose and value and all these things because they don't have a job anymore. So work is a blessing, not a curse. Number two, God has given you special gifts in order that you might be doing work on this earth. And you can read all throughout the Old Testament about how God gave special gifts to people to do certain jobs. Now, some of them become skills that they had to develop, and the same would be true for us. But the actual gifting for what we do is there. For example, I could look all day at the inside of a car engine, and I couldn't tell you how to do anything in that car engine. I have no mechanical ability, but you give me that opportunity within an organization, and I can figure out pretty soon what's going on, what's wrong here, what should we be doing to fix this, how do we motivate people? A lot of people can't figure those kind of things out, but God's given me that gift. So we want to determine what our gifts are, and so our next thing on work is first of all, again, that work is a blessing, not a curse. So we come to work with that idea. Number two, I'm gifted for something to do here. You may not be in the right job right now using your gifts for work, but that doesn't change your gifting. And now the third one, and this is so hard for people every single day. What did Jesus come to do? Did he come to tell everybody what to do, or did he come to serve? And of course, anyone who reads the Gospels with any sense of regularity will clearly see that Jesus came to serve. And that's what he says. In fact, to the extreme that he was willing to give his life that we might have an eternity with God. That is true service. So suppose our mindset now about work is really, that is why I'm here. Regardless of the job you're in, you could be an NFL player whose job it is to just go out there and play the best football, because look at the thousands of people you have an opportunity to influence. You may be a basketball coach, and you may be working in social media at some university. And there are going to be difficult days because of the curse, but you're gifted for something. And if your attitude is to serve, every day to serve, you will be following in Christ's footsteps. If we could train people within the church, outside of the church, to think in those terms, I believe it would radically shift people's ideas about going to work every day.
No, I like that. And it is, and it's hard for people to do that. It's hard for them to step out of themselves and think, if I just put my head down and serve, then I will feel better. I'll be happier. You know what I mean? There's less expectations in it. And I think that's one of the hardest things, is expectations make it harder and a lot of people unhappy.
Have you read or seen the book, Practicing the Presence of God?
No.
By Brother Lawrence. This book goes back several hundred years ago. And he was a monk, but he would wind up, in the kitchen and having to wash dishes. And every day of his life, he just began to practice the presence of God. Therefore, serving to him was just a natural byproduct of his love for God. And we're told that in the New Testament, that is what's going to give us a sense of our purpose as well.
Well, let's talk about one of your books, my favorite, The 10 Passions of a Man's Soul.
Yeah.
Tell me a little about that. The one topic I wanted to touch on, I think I voted it, was the passion for winning.
Yeah. Okay, so the passion for winning. Let me first say that when I did an interview one time with 2 women talk show hosts out in Washington, so now this is a book, 10 Passions of a Man's Soul, right? And they decided to pick 3 of the 10. They went, yeah, we have some significant doubts about these 3. One of them was power, another one was wealth, and another one was winning. And I'm not sure whether they had actually had the time. I mean, I interviewed, thousands of people over my radio life, and I couldn't read all books all the way through every time. I just didn't have the time to do that. So I'm not sure whether they read those chapters, but the point is that in the area of winning, you have to start asking the question, is there something ungodly about that? And, wait a minute. Why would there be? Even early in the Old Testament, you start to see that there were times where people had to go to battle. There were just things that men forced on this earth and women forced on this earth had to do in order to survive. And so winning became a part of that. We see it in sport, not so much as survival. But winning is something that is basically inertly put into us. I'm not sure how this works for women. Faith could probably in a moment describe that, because I'm sure women must have that as well, maybe in a different sense that a man does. But why is it important to have this? Bill McCartney was my guest on when I did the interview on this, the former great coach of the Colorado Buffaloes. And Bill was adamant about the idea that men need to learn how to win. In fact, Paul talks about the race, the Apostle Paul, that we're in this race and we want to win the prize. Why doesn't he just say, we just want to go out there and play? Because that doesn't have the same spirit to it, the challenge that we have in life. And so we win not so that we can show off. We win because that's the objective. And in our culture today, it's no surprise to many that we tend to give awards for participation, but not as much. And so we miss the mark because the call to achieve, to call to greatness is missed on that. And every week in sports, we see that's why people go on the courts and on the fields. They go to win. They don't go to show. And then there's that great honor that is bestowed at the end when you accomplish a championship. And so winning is a really a wonderful thing. It can inspire us. Champions, we look to them. They have a great way of getting in front of people afterwards and sharing their faith story. We see that in golf tournaments and sports and everything else. So winning is definitely something that God has wired into men and probably women as well. Faith, you want to comment on that?
Well, the more I think about it, and especially as an athlete, 23 years of competitive sports, you learn that everything is a competition. It's a habit that kind of grows within you. Um, and I think women are not much different than men in that arena where it comes to. I mean, we always want to win. I think that is just a human thing, but especially now as kids start sports so young and they're taught competitive and competition so early that is you want the trophy, you want the prize, you want to, right? And it's something that drives these kids. So the more I think about it, I mean, I don't know. I think it's along the same. I can see how it's something that kind of becomes habitual to us. Um, is it good?
Let me run something past you. If you get, how much time? I guess we have a couple of minutes here, but here are the principles that I put in that chapter, and I would just like to know from both of you if you disagree with any of these. All right. A man passionate about winning develops his skills and gifts with an eye on personal excellence.
Mm-hmm.
Second, a man passionate about winning keeps his character intact, whether celebrating victory or enduring defeat. Third, a man passionate about winning will sacrifice and use discipline as measuring devices of his pursuit. And we should always be paying attention to the way that we're contributing to the team with those in mind. Fourth, a man in pursuit of great victory, which is your eternal one, by the way, does not underestimate our enemy, who is relentless. The soul is his battleground. 5, a man seeking victory will not engage in battle without the appropriate battle attire. We know that in the scriptures as well in our spiritual life. We have the armor of God. Bill McCartney said he puts on that armor of God every day before he goes out. Number 6, a wise warrior will choose his battles carefully, knowing that only the most important ones are worth winning. And 7th, a true champion abides by the rules, credits his opponent, honors his team, and his coaches. Any thoughts on those?
That should be in every athlete's player playbook. That is so important. That is really so important. We talk about winning in life, and I guess essentially to sort a question I think you were going to ask me. Ultimately, it's not just necessarily about the scoreboard.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
Right? It's about winning in life. And I think you wanted to ask her the question about why didn't she
why she didn't go pursue the NBA or the WNBA.
Right. I think there's a lot to be said. Maybe people want to kind of share that.
Well, I'll get to that eventually. I'm gonna get to that question, but one thing that we do as a program and something that I think I was very thankful when I was at Duke to play for a coach. She had a great teammate, great player mantra, and all of those bullet points in the 5 or 6 were on that, right? One of her favorite was the no opponent mentality, which is when you prepare for battle, when you prepare for a game, when you prepare for anything in life. You make sure that you are at the best you can be and you prepare for yourself so that when you walk into these situations, you are giving your best step forward, right? It's not if the person is better, the team is better, or the team is worse than you guys. You always prepare the exact same way and enter that ring the exact same way every single time, which is your best foot forward. And that's one of my favorite ones. I always think in towards life, towards games, towards writing a paper or anything, you try to form the habit of presenting your best every single time because it just becomes a habit. And then with the question of not playing before, well, one, I was not going to play in the WNBA. I was not good enough for that. That was something that we had to agree on as a family. The women are stronger, longer, taller in WNBA, but I did have the opportunity to go play overseas, and I could have played in Italy or Greece or anywhere. I think I had come to a point where I no longer loved, like we talked about, you enjoy. I no longer loved being the player on the court. I just wanted to be around the game. That was something I really enjoyed. So now in the position I'm in, I get that same fulfillment and happiness from seeing other kids kind of live in the footsteps that I had done and going through the same things. But I couldn't see myself dedicating 6 to 10 more years of beating on my body and exhaustion and just kind of it's hard. And not only that, but you take a big pause on your personal life, whether it's becoming married, kids, a family, away from your family for a long period of time, right? Women go overseas and they don't see their families until maybe 6, 7, 8 months later. And that was a big thing for me because family is a major part of my life. It has been for a long time, but especially when I lost our mom. So I wanted to be around them. I wanted to witness Devin kind of go in his career and his part. And that for me is fulfilling. That for me was what brought me joy. So I was able to sit back and make that decision and kind of turn gears and look a little bit towards what is next for me. What do I'm going to enjoy next, right? And it wasn't a regretful decision or anything. It was just something that brought me so much joy because I was excited for the next step in life.
Yeah.
I'd like you to consider something that apart from your obvious basketball skills, and that took you to where you are now, by the way,
Mm-hmm.
right? And your ability to understand the game. Think just now, move your life ahead 30 years and maybe 40 years. And there's a special evening to honor Faith Suggs for her contributions to the team. And it could be, I don't know where that team is. Maybe you're going on to other college. You don't know where it is, but let's just play it out for a moment. And then all of a sudden, one by one, maybe 10, 12 women get up and pay tribute to you. Not because you were a great basketball player, but says instead they would say, because Faith played the most important role of being an influence in my life. Now, what would have created a better purpose? Just to be on the basketball court and have people rave about you, or to have your eyes filled with tears as you listen to these women talk about what a great influence you were in their personal lives and how you helped them achieve greatness?
Yes. No. And I'm so glad you said that because this has come to my mind before. Just using, and I think this is one of the things I tell people all the time, and I talk with my brother about actually a lot, is we were brought through adversity for us to have a story. And that story is our gift. And the more we can share that story and live our story on a daily and have people witness who we are and meet our strength and learn who we are and what we've been through, that inspires them just from us living our lives, let alone telling the story. And I kind of touched on that a little bit when I became a senior in college, where I was kind of opening that door a little bit and realizing how beautiful our story is and how influential it is to others. And so I'm glad you said that because that is very fulfilling for me to be able to share an experience like that and see how it has touched other people's lives and kind of turn their minds. And you can see the gears moving a little bit for them in comparison to just being an athlete and a player. I started to see that one is more powerful than the other.
This is why God may have you where you are right now.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Wow.
Where do you want to go next?
Well, I think we're wrapping it up soon. Let me see. This was wonderful. Dad,
I'm speechless, So, the whole part from my dad's perspective, really quick, is watching her as she moved from her freshman, sophomore, junior year, and where I learned that her purpose wasn't necessarily how many points she made, how many minutes she made, but the impact that I observed and the role that she had on the team as a leader. To me, is more rewarding than anything, any point. I mean, I know she led the ACCA charge take and she hit threes, but the fact that she was that leader, she was that person that people, that even the coach after the game, she was that player that Coach Pete spent time with, is probably one of the most rewarding things that I've ever experienced.
Well, thank you so much for joining us today. I enjoyed the show. I'm happy and I'm excited to play it again eventually so we can get more people to see it, because this one was wonderful. We're so thankful for you to join us this morning, and we would love to have you back one day eventually.
I love your dad and looking forward to having coffee with him this Sunday.
Yes.
All right. Thank you, Mark.
Thank you, Mark.
Blessings.
So thank you again for joining us this wonderful Wednesday morning. We're so thankful for those of you who stopped by to discuss. We will see you on Friday, or Shafer Suggs will see you on Friday with an exciting group to talk about a lot of stuff that I'm sure you do not want to miss. Got some
Oh, Miranda.
But thank you again, everyone. Thank you especially to Amazon Fire, Facebook, YouTube, Roku, Apple TV, and importantly, out of Phoenix, Arizona, our key platform, E360 TV. And again, of course, this is Faith Family Focus, where we use our faith as a vehicle to help heal and sustain others on strengthening their family core. And of course, our slogan, let go, let God, let go, let faith, let go, let love. Everyone have a wonderful Wednesday and enjoy the rest of your week. We'll see you on Friday.